Good morning, everybody. Welcome in to Live and Learn. Hope you're doing well on this Friday, May the 23rd. It is Memorial Day weekend for our friends in the United States. Just came off the Victoria Day long weekend in Canada. But in saying that, a time of year that things slow down but also speed up at the same time with lots happening. Looking at the world of sports, you got the French Open that we'll talk about. We'll talk about the odds coming up. That starts on Sunday morning in Paris. We got the Memorial Cup, which kicks off tonight in Rimouski, which I think is going to be a great tournament. It's all on TSN. So I'll talk about some players to watch in that tournament because I think it's going to be fantastic, the Memorial Cup. I'm looking forward to watching it. We also, obviously, the UFC always is pumping out news and everything happening there. So, and not to mention the World Championship going on in Herning, Denmark, and Stockholm, Sweden, including a big upset yesterday with Denmark beating Canada, a loaded Canada team. Nick Ehlers flies over. He scores the tying goal. They get the game winner with 48 seconds left. It's a win on home soil for Denmark. The biggest win in their country's history, no doubt about it. For them to make the quarterfinal round was huge. Now they get to play for a medal. They get to play Switzerland, the top-ranked team, tomorrow. We'll see what they can do. You got Sweden and the Americans in the other semifinal. So hockey's been good. Sweden's got a good team. They're by far the favorite to me at this point, looking at Zibanejad, and now that Bill Nylander flew over, and you got Jacob Markstrom between the pipes. But Switzerland's got a lot of guys, Andreas Ampule, who, if you're familiar with the Spangler Cup, you know him well. 40 years old, 5 goals in the tournament, still doing it. I love to see it. So it could go either way. It's a crazy tournament. It's the Worlds. You never know. There's such pride, at least to me, when I see it, for these European countries and playing for their country. And the fans are crazy. I love it. Sweden, United States tomorrow at 9 a.m. And then at 1 o'clock, you got Switzerland, Denmark in the nightcap. But we got some big stories to talk about. We're going to talk about the Western Conference, Eastern Conference finals. But I wanted to open with the news yesterday announced by Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment via a press release, and then a further added statement by Brendan Shanahan that now former president Brendan Shanahan will be departing the Maple Leaf organization after 11 years. 11 years, a long time. I said on Tuesday that this is no surprise. Brendan Shanahan, you're there that long, eventually it wears thin. And really, in most situations, it would have wore thin a lot earlier because the Maple Leafs aren't having success. You hear the rumor mill, oh, what about John Cooper? When's he going to be fired in Tampa? He's won multiple Stanley Cups. He's been to 4 Stanley Cup finals in his tenure. You got Brendan Shanahan, who won 2 playoff rounds in 11 years. Made the playoffs 9 times. Great. But very little success when it comes to ultimately, and that's the ultimate goal, and that's winning. I'm sure he sold tickets, and they brought back Legends Row and the Jurassic Park, Maple Leaf Square. Fantastic idea where, actual Leaf fans can kind of join together and enjoy the moment. But winning is what it comes down to. And Brendan Shanahan didn't win. And when you don't win, you become expendable. This was the only decision for Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment to let Brendan Shanahan go. It became very clear that this was happening because on Wednesday, the New York Islanders asked permission to speak to Brendan Shanahan. They also asked permission to speak to Jeff Gordon of the Montreal Canadiens, who's their president of hockey operations. Montreal said no because they like Jeff. So it's the contrast of Montreal, we want to keep our guy. Toronto saying, you can have him. And I think for Brendan, he can look back and be really proud of what he did, and he should. I can be harsh on people. I know it's hard to believe. I might have been a little too harsh on Tuesday, but it's all Leaf chatter all the time. So I try to bring some objectivity into it. But he did a lot of good in Toronto. He did a lot of bad, like any, president, GM. Because Kyle Dubas, I think, really wasn't a great GM for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think that's proven more and more, looking at his early tenure with the Pittsburgh Penguins. But Brendan Shanahan wanted to keep Kyle. Brendan Shanahan has oversaw every move. Brendan Shanahan was unwilling to move off the core four. He put his career on the line for it, was the verbiage. And ultimately, it was a colossal failure. And you go from Keefe, Babcock, Craig Berube, Treliving, Dubas, moving parts. But ultimately, you can draft a Matthew Nyes that was a home run with pick 56. And you can make a great trade for Jake Muzzin that I think is still a great trade. Obviously unfortunate with his injuries, but Jake Muzzin was awesome. The Chris Tanev signing, great. But ultimately, he decided the core four, you got to stay together. And it didn't work. And when it doesn't work and you're the president, you are held responsible. It's just the way it goes. He took more bullets, one could argue, than the players did. Because the players still, some 10, 11 years into their tenure in Toronto, have refused to accept, have refused to acknowledge their poor play in the biggest moments. Austin Matthews, too many passengers, or I think we played hard, but it's not anything reflective. Or Brendan Shanahan would have to go every year and say, I believe in these guys. I believe in them. Why he felt that way beats me, but I'm not Brendan Shanahan. I'm not living it every day. It's tough to move off a situation where you're making the playoffs every year. I get that. But the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Yankees, the Lakers, they're big brands. And a lot of them don't win shit. But the expectation from the fan base is that you're always in a position to compete and to win championships. Now, the Cowboys haven't won since the 90s. The Maple Leafs haven't won since the 60s. The Lakers have won a few. Thanks, Kobe. R.I.P. The Yankees haven't won one since 2009. But despite the failures, if you will, that remains the expectation. That remains the purpose. So in Shanahan leaving, my question now is, where does the team go? And not so much with the president role, because I think Keith Pelley, who's scheduled to meet the media today, and we'll talk about what he has to say on Monday on our next podcast, but what is the direction? I think he'll be the president. I don't think they'll replace Brendan Shanahan right away anyway. But how aggressive are they in free agency? How safe is Brad Treliving's job? And do you prioritize this upcoming season, or do you prioritize the next offseason? And that can be a dangerous game because I've read some people, some semi-smart people in the media, and those covering the Leafs, they're few and far between, but discussing the 2026 offseason, the 2026 NHL free agent class. Let me just pull that up for you, because it is quite staggering how good this class could be. It starts with Connor McDavid. I mean, need I say more? He's the best player in the world. If you watch the Oilers Game 1, he was a man on a mission. Now, does McDavid stay in Edmonton? Probably. But it's also something you want to consider, saying we might want to save some cap room for Connor McDavid. Never know. Also a free agent in 2026, Jack Eichel. Pretty good player. Stanley Cup champion. He's right around 100 points every year. He's a gamer, competitive person. 30. Still got game. Still can play. Moving down the list, some older guys, Malkin, Anders Lee, Kopitar, Charlie Coyle. But as you keep going, you start to find Kirill Kaprizov, Kurt member of the Minnesota Wild. What a talent he is. Can do everything on the ice. Really willed Minnesota into a playoff spot this year. Creative, produced in the playoffs, unlike another winger that Toronto has, maybe had, come a couple of weeks. But really good player. Does he sign in Minnesota? Maybe. But something to think about, no doubt about it. Artemi Panarin. I wouldn't want him ever. But teams, we're talking about Toronto, they're not the smartest organization in the world. Artemi Panarin he will generate interest. Whether it makes sense to me or not, kind of irrelevant. But Artemi Panarin, free agent. Cale Makar. Cale Makar. I hear he plays in Colorado. I hear he's pretty good. I don't know for a fact, though, but I think he's a pretty good player. He's been underpaid for the last number of years. Stanley Cup champion, multiple-time Norris winner. God, he's good. Toronto hasn't had a number one defenseman, 30 years. So, be nice. Could be a nice key to winning is actually having a number one defenseman. Now, he'll want big money. He's worth it. cap going up. But these are just some names to consider. It's easy to look at this offseason and go, attack. Sam Bennett. I love Sam Bennett. 9 goals in the playoffs so far. 9. That's almost more goals than Austin Matthews in his playoff career. And he's got it in one postseason, Sam Bennett. When I think of Sam Bennett, some might say dirty, some might whatever, kiss my ass. I say competitor. That's what I think of when I think Sam. I think competitor. I think a guy that will do what it takes to win. He's just a gamer. Now, if you look at his regular season stats, he might not get you 50 points. He might not score 22 goals. But he shows up when it matters. He's looking to get to his 3rd straight Stanley Cup final. He knows what it's like to play into June. Do I think he could help the Toronto Maple Leafs? Yeah. Aaron Ekblad. He's an even better player now that he was on the roids. He got caught. I'm sure he's still got some of that TRT in his system. Maybe that HGH, maybe A-Rod gave him a shot in the ass. But now that he's juiced up, ready to go, he was already a good player. Had a really good season. Now, did he have a really good season because he was on steroids and he was in a contract year? Because you know how I feel about that. Always a possibility. Doesn't hurt your chances of getting a good contract. But a thought. But again, a good player. An interesting player, an interesting name to add to the mix. There's Brad Marchand. Older guy, bottom 6 role, but still serves a purpose. Would add something to Toronto that they really don't have. Some snarl, some irritability. Their top guys don't have it. He does. Could be a good mix. So I think for Toronto's offseason, it's balancing what you want to do. When do you want to be? Can you risk being conservative? How conservative do you want to be? Because banking on McDavid hitting free agency and Kaprizov hitting free agency and Makar hitting free agency is a dangerous game. Because Mikko Rantanen's been the outlier. But outside of him, the main stars re-sign. They don't go anywhere. McKinnon re-upped. Matthews re-upped. Draisaitl re-upped. Marner? Looks like he's going to hit free agency. Is he a superstar? Over 82, maybe. After that, no. So teams like to keep their guys, in particular when your guys are the best players in the league. Fairly obvious you don't want to lose him. Looking at Kirill Kaprizov, Minnesota can't lose him. He's so important to their future. He's such a good player. They're in I don't think Minnesota's a small market because I think that's doing them a disservice because they have really passionate fans and they're hosting the World Juniors next year. And they always seem to have a good NCAA team. They have a good program down there. But the weather sucks. And, it's not Florida. There's no perks. There's no state tax or anything, no state income tax. So if you could play elsewhere, I bet you would. See, you can't lose him. Cale Makar is interesting because McKinnon doesn't seem thrilled with what Colorado's doing. I'm sure he's not either. One of their best players is now playing for their rival for the next 8 years. And Dallas has old guys, but they pump out young talent every year. They just find a way to do it. So there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of interesting decisions. It's a fascinating offseason. Shanahan leaving. I think this was the case anyway, but Mitch Marner will not be returning to the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think he's going to one of Detroit, Chicago, or Utah. If I'm wrong, we'll talk about it. I'll own it. That's my initial guess. Utah is interesting because they need star power. New franchise. They do not want to become Seattle. Seattle, expansion team, really cool rink. Seems like a cool viewing experience. The Kraken, I like the team name. But they become irrelevant. The team doesn't have a star player. The team doesn't have an identity. The team plays at 11:30 at night, so nobody's watching them. The team's made the playoffs once. Shane Wright hasn't become a star, so they can't really market him. He had a solid season. Looks like a third liner, which is fine. But he's not a star. They aren't close to making the playoffs. They don't have high-end talent. Their goaltender is one of their best players in Joey Decord, which, again, tough to market. So I think Marner would make a lot of sense business-wise. But I think of Utah, I think of Detroit, and I think of Chicago. 3 teams that are thinking differently than the Torontos of the world, thinking different than Colorado. How do we win? How? That's what Toronto and these teams are thinking. Utah, Detroit, Chicago. There's others that he could go to, but we'll stick with those 3 for now. How do we make the playoffs? How do we become relevant by making the playoffs, getting some home playoff dates, making some more revenue, and getting people in the barn excited about our product? Utah, the Jazz suck, and they have for a number of years, and they're always in the lottery, and they haven't gotten any better. So you might look up and go, we have an opportunity here to take over this market, get a star player in Mitch Marner, and see what we can do. See if we can build a winning culture around him. Clayton Keller is a good player, good leader of that team, solid. You got Josh Doan, who's emerging on the scene. Sergachev on the back end is now in Utah. Their roster isn't terrible now. You add Marner to it, they could be a playoff team. 100%. Don't become Seattle. Because, yes, they used to be Arizona, but they're as if they're an expansion team at this point. And you got to grab your fan base early. Vegas went to a cup final in year 1. That's so hard to do. But Vegas has missed the playoffs once in the history of their franchise existing. A second-round appearance again this year. Aggressive, pushing, trying to win every time that they can. Just something to consider looking at it. If Shanahan goes to Long Island, another organization where it's right now just thinking, let's make the playoffs. They got the number 1 pick in the draft. That's enticing. If you're going there as a president, or he's never been a GM before. He's only been the president. Reportedly, he'd like to have both titles. Which, by the way, they're not signing off on a draft pick without him, so he's kind of been a GM. He's kind of been a GM before, but we don't want to kill everybody's reporting. I hate to do that. But he's made draft picks. I mean, come on. But number 1 pick in the draft, they could get Matthew Schaefer, good defenseman, with Noah Dobson on the back end. That's fun. They got a lot of cap space. You could bring Mitch Marner there. I wouldn't, but it's not me. It's not my money. I think they need a shift. Islanders have been the same for a long, long time. Play the trap, grind you into existence, and beat you in the margins. Really, they're a lesser version of what the Florida Panthers are now and what Carolina, some iteration of what they're doing. Works for Florida because they got high-end talent. Didn't ultimately work for the Islanders because they didn't have enough of it. Brock Nelson is gone. Anders Lee is getting a little long in the tooth. They have some older players on that team, trying to develop new guys, trying to push people through. I think Shanahan gets a job somewhere. Very well could be Long Island. Wouldn't it be funny if he told Lou, thanks but no thanks, we're going with Dubas. Then he ends up replacing Lou Lamoriello in Long Island. And Lamoriello had more success than Shanahan did in Toronto, by the way. Multiple conference final appearances, which Shanahan has never done in his executive career. Multiple, let alone one. So there's options for him. Him and Patrick Waugh down there, tat-a-tat, making decisions, could be fun. Mentioned the Islanders teams kind of play like Florida. The Eastern Conference Final, which Florida now leads 2-0, winning both games on the road in dominant fashion. 10-2 aggregate score after 2 games. First, I want to talk about this. People are saying, let's go back to the 1 versus 8 format. I get it. I don't hate the idea. But if it's only because it's Leafs media, Carlo Koliakovo, tweeting about it because you're a fanboy and your team can't win, shut up. Shut up. If that's the reason for it, I don't care. Just simple. If that's the reason for making a change, I'd rather make no change. Because I just find that ridiculous. Because I remember the first round was phenomenal. Remember Dallas, Colorado? God, that was fun. Oilers, LA was fun. Toronto, Ottawa. Everybody saw Toronto playing Ottawa in the first round. Great. Battle of Florida. The first round of the playoffs, there was one bad series. Hurricanes, Devils, you could argue, was boring. Other than that, the first round was phenomenal. Second round, Oh, Winnipeg, St. Louis. Almost forgot about that. So when it comes to interesting, yes, it was interesting. Second round, Toronto, Florida, goes 7 games. Interesting, I would argue. Good series. Dallas beats Winnipeg 6 games, overtime winner. Entertaining series. Oilers beat Vegas in 5, but 2 of those games went to overtime. And 4 of them were 1-goal games. I found it entertaining. I enjoyed it. Carolina, Washington, more snooze, but that's going to happen. So, common denominator here is that Carolina is boring, but they're in the conference final. Okay? I can agree with that. Florida, Carolina would be a matchup in the first round if it was a 1-8 seeding. So I get it. But I also think the Metropolitan Division was so bad this season. It was Carolina. Washington was a Cinderella 1 seed. A Cinderella 1 seed because they were the belle of the ball last year, just making the playoffs, how they did it. A great moment with Ovechkin breaking the goals record. Scratch it, it was a phenomenal moment. But other than that, New Jersey, withered away by injuries, no business being in a series. The New York Rangers, easily the most disappointing team in the sport. Terrible. Were in the conference final last year, didn't make the playoffs this year. Islanders, stunk. Columbus, good story, didn't make the playoffs. Not a team that can compete for a championship yet. Also an interesting team for Marner. But I think it's more about the Metropolitan Division and how inept it was this year than we're so tired of this. This could have been the first round. The playoff format sucks. Would I prefer 1-8? Yes. But again, I don't want 1-8 if the only reasoning that people can come up with for the shift is, oh, the Maple Leafs would have gotten farther. Kiss my ass. I don't want to hear it. First of all, you can't say that because you never know what's going to happen in the reseed. They would have played Tampa in the first round. Do they beat Tampa? Probably. But eventually they would have got to Florida and they would have lost. So it would have been better if you got to the conference final and then lost. Really? I just don't want to hear it. Like Carlo Koliakovo. Surprised he can work. He doesn't get a Band-Aid sitting on the chair, getting hurt. Florida is superior to Carolina. They have been for some time. They swept them 2 years ago. It sure looks like they're going to sweep them again. The series is only 2-0. But Carolina does everything Florida does, but Florida does it better. Florida has more ways that they can beat you. Carolina does not. Carolina wants to prey on your mistakes. Florida makes few mistakes, and they have an easier time capitalizing on mistakes because they have guys like Sam Bennett and Carter Verhaeghe and Matthew Tkachuk who are phenomenal. That line was chef's kiss. So in saying all this, does Carolina look lost? Yes. Is Jordan Stahl right that they got their ass kicked last night? Absolutely. Is it embarrassing that they had 7 shots after 2 periods? Yeah. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. You get who you get. And based on the last 3 years, Florida beats everyone. It's just the way it works. They're looking to get to their third straight conference final. It's third straight Stanley Cup final, pardon me. They've already done third straight conference final. So I don't care who's coming out. Extraterrestrial could come out saying, we're going to beat the Florida Panthers. I'm taking Florida based on their track record and what they've accomplished. And to me, they're getting better as the playoffs are going on, not getting worse, which is rare, especially for a team that very well could be tired. They don't look tired. They look ready to go. They win both games on the road. That game was over in the first period. Transparency here. I didn't watch the third period. I was watching some of the basketball game, which also was a blowout. So I watched an episode of The Last of Us. Started it. Premiere was okay. Because it was over. It wasn't a game. Can Carolina get back into this? Yeah. But I think more than anything, their goal is to keep games close. Because ultimately, even if a game's close, I'm going to go with Florida to win that close game. Because when they swept them 2 years ago, every game was decided by one goal, and Florida won all 4. They're clutch. They know what they're doing. Simple as that. So you'd like to see more fight? Carolina's got to get the first goal. That's imperative. Florida's also the champs. And they're showing people what they can do. They've won 4 straight games on the road in the playoffs. And they won those games 6-1, 6-1, 5-2, 5-0. That's dominance, Holmes. To quote Tony Kornheiser. The Western Conference Final features the Edmonton Oilers and the Dallas Stars. And Wednesday night, I'm doing 2 things at once. I'm watching the hockey game, and I'm also watching the finale of Survivor 48. And Edmonton is dominating. Connor McDavid was phenomenal in that hockey. Leon Draisaitl was phenomenal in the first 2 periods. They were all over the ice, creating, attacking pucks. I found my notes here because I was so just impressed with what they were doing. Yeah, McDavid creating all over the ice, 2 secondary assists, but he had such an impact on the game. Found Nugent Hopkins on a deflection for that goal. They were moving the puck so fast, which leads to fewer mistakes for that defense score for Edmonton, so that's a positive. They made 1 mistake, Leon and Klingberg at the blue line. Other than that, Dallas was chasing the game. And then in the third period, Edmonton got loose. They got a tad unhinged. And they got lazy. And they gave a victory away. Through 40 minutes, it was not close. But Edmonton allowed Dallas back into the game and gave them the opportunity to win. Edmonton took 3 penalties in the third period, and Dallas scored on all 3 power plays. And all 3 were penalties. No dispute, no debate. Now, contrasting that to last year, where Edmonton, Dallas both met in the conference final. Dallas did not score a power play goal in last year's conference in 6 games. Not one power play goal. They have 3 already in this series. Seguin, Duchesne, Miro Heiskanen with a beauty. Mikhail Granlund. Edmonton took penalties. They made them pay for it. Credit to the Dallas Stars. Seguin had an awesome game, all over the ice, making things happen. Duchesne drew a penalty, then ultimately scored the game-winning goal. Mikhail Granlund had a beauty to make it 3-2, top shelf. Edmonton should be very disappointed because that's a game it's a road game. You automatically get that one on the road. You're looking for the split, and you get it. But one period where you got lazy, you got stupid, your sticks were going everywhere, you threw it away. Evander Kane, that penalty that he took, high-sticking Duchesne, that can't happen. The game just became 3-3. You put your stick up in the air, right on his face. They're calling that every time. No excuse for that. Just stupid decisions, stupid awareness of where the game is, where you are on the ice, the situation. It was an immature period for a team that has played very mature in these playoffs, got to a Stanley Cup final last year, beat this team last year. Now, in saying that, Carolina should be panicked because I think it's going to take a lot for them to win their series. A lot of help, a lot of things to go their way, possible earthquake, a lot to break their way. Edmonton, to me, if you look at the game 5-on-5 and you look at 40 of the 60 minutes, Edmonton was far and away the superior team. They controlled. They moved the puck so efficiently. 5-on-5, they were better. Hyman on the boards, McDavid creating, Draisaitl. The fact that they're on different lines, I love that. Spread the wealth. Matthias Ekholm, not back tonight, but should be back at some point in this series, possibly Sunday. By the way, Game 3 Sunday is an afternoon game, 4 o'clock, Game 3. Now, in saying that, they better win tonight. They better win tonight. You want that split. They came back from 0-2 down, losing 2 road games to the LA Kings. Dallas is not the LA Kings. Dallas is well coached. Dallas is smart. They have veteran players. And they got some clutch ability. And I just think they're a smart organization, the Dallas Stars. I love Pete DeBoer. Jim Nill's one of the best executives in hockey. Oilers shouldn't be panicked, as I said. However, win tonight. McDavid, Draisaitl have another awesome game, but do it for 60 minutes, not for 40. They did it for 40 the other night, and it burned them. Got to finish the job. Got to give out the total effort. And I don't think they did that completely. But very fun game. This being a conference final. I don't have an issue with. Seen some of it, but I don't think so. Other NHL news. The Chicago Blackhawks named Jeff Blashill their new head coach. So that search is over for Chicago. Blashill was a head coach in Detroit. He followed Mike Babcock. He was head coach there for 7 years. Missed the playoffs in 6 of those seasons. He was in a tough spot following, making the playoffs 22 straight years. He then went to Tampa, was on John Cooper's staff for 3 seasons, had some success, was around the best coach in the sport, if you ask me. So he gets a second chance in Chicago with a really bad roster. And I think ultimately for him coming in, his main job, make Connor Bedard a better player. You want the team to win, original 6, good hockey market. But make Connor Bedard a better player. Make him palatable. He's supposed to be a superstar. Get that out of him. If I'm brass, that's what I'm talking to him about. This is our linchpin. This is our golden goose, Connor Bedard. He was dreadful. He didn't go to the World Championships. That still doesn't sit well with me. I hate that. And yes, Canada didn't win, as we talked about off the top. But Macklin Celebrini played with Sid. They have a connection now. They seem to like one another. Love to see that. And you get to play for your country. But Blashill's walking into a tough spot right out of the gate. Doesn't mean he can't have success. Put some pressure on Kyle Davidson to get him some better players. Whether that's through trade, whether that's through free agency. This team can't be a joke again. Like they got the 3rd pick in the draft. So they're going to get a good prospect. So we'll see with Jeff Blashill in Chicago. We still got Boston, Seattle, Pittsburgh. All vacant. Still looking for new head coaches. Lane Lambert, the assistant for the Maple Leafs, former head coach with the Islanders. He is being interviewed with Seattle this week. So that could be a landing spot for him. Boston, reportedly from the insiders, have interviewed something like 15 guys. Sounds like they'll make a decision next week. Pittsburgh, who the hell knows? Kyle Dubas has been at the World Championships, so maybe they haven't been talking to as many head coaching candidates. I do know that they were scheduled to interview Gardner McDougall. Obviously, McDougall is going to be at the Memorial Cup. Just won the Q with the Moncton Wildcats. Has had such a successful run as a head coach wherever he's gone. Could he make that jump? No better time than the present, because all he does is winning, and all they're doing in Pittsburgh is losing. Sidney Crosby, Maritimer. McDougall, Maritimer. Could be something there. We'll see. He could be one and done in Moncton. But that's just some NHL notes to look at coming up over the next little bit. Speaking of the Memorial Cup, it kicks off tonight in Rimouski. Monday afternoon, the Moncton Wildcats beat the Rimouski Oceanic in Rimouski to win the President's Cup for the first time since 2006, where Moncton was the host but also won the league, which is something Rimouski was trying to do. But Moncton is the ultimate champions. I went to the game on Saturday. Great crowd. Great to see that building alive. And now Moncton will represent the Q alongside the host, the Rimouski Oceanic, in the Memorial Cup. I'm very much looking forward to this tournament. I refuse to say the E word, excited, because I hate that word. But I'm very much looking forward to this tournament because there's a lot of great talent. Every team is quite good. You can't say that every year because sometimes the WHL just sucks because they never win anything. But there's great storylines going into this tournament. And let's start with the London Knights. The London Knights, who are back in the Memorial Cup for the second straight season. The London Knights, who played in the Memorial Cup final last year, heavy favorites against the Saginaw Spirit, the host, and they ultimately lost that game 6-3. Big disappointment, massive favorites, but you had guys like Easton Cowan, the Toronto Maple Leafs first rounder. You had guys like Sam Dickinson, Oliver Bonk, Casper Haltonen, Sam O'Reilly, Landon Sim. All guys who are draft picks, but had the ability to come back for another season, and they all remain. They all had great seasons as 18-year-olds. They all had another great years, 19-year-olds. London lost one game in their run to winning the Ontario Hockey League, and that came in the final game one against the Oshawa Generals. So 3 sweeps and a gentleman's sweep. Top to bottom, London's the best team. They got the experienced coach and Dale Hunter. Easton Cowan is a Leafs pick, so he's talked about a lot, but he's also just a super talented guy. Can make things happen on the ice as an older player, has the experience, again, in another Memorial Cup, World Juniors. He should shine in this event. But you had Cowan, Sam Dickinson, San Jose first rounder, was a defenseman for Canada at the World Juniors as well. Great shot, offensive player, can make things happen, jumps into the play, as unique as it gets. Oliver Bonk, son of Radek Bonk, also played for Canada at the World Juniors. Casper Haltonen is a second rounder, but he scored in the last series against Oshawa. He had 3 hat tricks. He scored 18 goals in the playoffs. He reminds me of Patrick Laine because he's also Finnish, but he sets up and he's got a howitzer of a shot. He's a goal-scoring machine, probably the best goal scorer in this tournament. Sam O'Reilly, a good two-way center. He was the last pick of the first round last year by the Edmonton Oilers. Has developed, became a better player this year. And you also have Landon Sim, who Toronto recently signed to an entry-level contract just a couple of weeks ago. London's stacked. They have the experience on the big moments. Now you could go Cowan, Dickinson, Bonk. They didn't win last year. They didn't win at the World Juniors this year. But to me, they're the heavy favorites. They're the best team walking into this tournament. Next, I'm going to go OHL. We'll go to WHL. Representing the WHL, the Medicine Hat Tigers. It's been almost 10 years since the WHL has won a Memorial Cup, which is hard to believe, but it's true. Medicine Hat has had a phenomenal season led by phenom 17-year-old Gavin McKenna. Gavin McKenna, who went 56 straight games with at least a point, who had well over 100 points on the season, And he's only 17 years old. He's only draft eligible in 2026. So he's going to be playing another year of junior. We'll be playing another World Juniors come December in Minnesota. He's the most intriguing player in this tournament because he's box office and you want to see what he can do. Simple as that. He'll be going first overall in 2026. So you get to see him a year before he's drafted play on one of the biggest stages in Rimouski on national TV. Does it get better? On his team, you have Tanner Mollendijk, a Nashville first-rounder, played for Team Canada at the World Juniors. Really great, can skate for days. Smart player, good shot. I think Mollendijk's going to be a good NHL. He could be an NHL player next year, I believe. And Mollendijk kind of anchors that back end, does a lot of great things for Medicine Hat. Caden Lindstrom, a third overall pick of Columbus, has only played in 5 games this year. Had a severe injury, rehab most of the year, came back in Game 4 of the finale series against the Spokane Chiefs. But he's healthy. He gets an opportunity to finish his season off the right way. And he's gotten 3 points in 2 games. He could be a big contributor for Medicine Hat. Medicine Hat doesn't have the star power outside of Gavin McKenna that, say, a team like London does. It's hard to match what London brings to the table when it comes to experience, draft picks, things of that nature. But they have that X factor, and they've been a dominant. They lost 2 games in the WHL playoffs. That's it. That's it. Our host team, the Rimouski Oceanic. I watched Rimouski play Moncton in February. And Rimouski won the game, and it wasn't a particularly close game, and I was really impressed by Rimouski. This was right after might have been January, it was right after the trade deadline. And I thought, okay, well, they're going to be a good host because they're not a talented bunch, so to speak, but they're the most experienced team when it comes to age in this tournament. Their captain, Jacob Mathieu, is 21 years old. Jonathan Fauchon is 20 years old. Jack Martin is 20. We'll get to him. Matthew Cataford, former Halifax Moosehead, is 19 plus. They acquired Eric Matejko at the trade deadline from the St. John's. He was the captain of the St. John Sea Dogs, Latvian-born player. They're an older bunch with good experience that play hard. They beat Moncton. They beat Moncton that night. They made it an interesting series against Moncton in the final. Because I think they know who they are as a team, and they do a very good job of just playing to their identity. They eliminate ice. They make it difficult on you to score. They frustrate you, and their goaltender is pretty solid. Nobody on this team will jump off the page at you and go, that's a superstar. Oh, wow, that guy was phenomenal tonight. Now, if you just like watching smart hockey, Jack Martin will impress you. 20-year-old defenseman, undrafted. Kid can play. Gets puck out of his zone so efficiently. Hockey IQ. Slavin-esque. I like him. Cataford. Just a hard worker. NHL level, bottom six forward, no doubt about it. Not a top six guy. But he'd be one of the better offensive players on this team. He's got good work ethic, good penalty killer, will block a shot, cares, ultimately. Fauchon, good goal scorer, good shot, has been clutch for them. Matejko, another guy, big body, can shoot the puck. Rimouski, to me, isn't even a hot take. By far the least talented team in this 14 tournament. By far. Doesn't mean they can't win. Because it's a weird tournament, and we're talking about kids playing hockey. Junior players. So anything can happen. Saginaw shouldn't have won the Memorial Cup last year, but they did. They found a way. You get the St. John Sea Dogs when they hosted, when Gardner McDougall took over. They were out in the first round. They fired their head coach. They were in nothing. They went undefeated in the Memorial Cup because they put it together for a week. That's all you have to do. Put it together successfully for 1 week. You do that, you win. Could Rimouski? Sure. And then you got the Moncton Wildcats. The Q champions. Very successful. 3 losses in their postseason. 2 of them coming to Rimouski. They're headlined by Caleb Denoyer, who will be drafted in the top 10 of this year's NHL entry draft in Los Angeles at the end of June. Good player. Very creative. Can make things magic happen with the puck on his stick. I've watched him a lot, so I think it's this year. So I can come up with gripes that I don't like about him. We'll share that. We'll watch the games. We'll talk about it. Can he be pushed out of the game a little bit? Yeah. Do I think he's a center but plays more like a winger? Yeah. Do I think he could use his physicality more? Mm-hmm. Do I think he's a little soft on pucks? Yeah. The kid can play. Great shot, creative. Super talented. Super talented. He's got more good than bad, 100%. Moncton, Julius Sumpf, a German-born player. I thought he played really well, especially in that final for Moncton. He can go hit or miss. Dylan Gill, an overager, came back from he's a Tampa draft pick, was playing with the Syracuse Crunch. Huge addition. I don't know if they get this far without him. Pekarchik, hard name to pronounce. I like him. He's a competitor, good shot, can make things happen. And Gabe Smith, Utah draft pick. Again, they have a lot of these guys, Vidicek, Gabe Smith, that they're not massive talents, but they work really hard. Vincent Collar, another guy, comes to mind. And they find a way, which is impressive in and of itself. So credit to them. Looking at it, it's close. Hard to make a prediction with junior players, but I'm going to anyway. I think it's going to be the London Knights and the Moncton Wildcats in the final. And again, tough matchups, tough opponents. I think it's going to be a very close tournament. But I got Moncton playing London in the final, and I got London winning the Memorial Cup, something they couldn't do last year, they will do this year. It's rare to see a team make it to back-to-back Memorial Cups where at least they're not a host for one of them. The Windsor Spitfires were the last team to do it. Taylor Hall, Ryan Ellis were on those teams. They won back-to-back. So obviously London can achieve that, but they're in back-to-back and at least win one of them. It gets started tonight, Medicine Hat and Rimouski. I said Monday we'll be back on the podcast. We're going to recap games. We're going to talk about what we've seen so far. You basically get a game every day. You get Medicine Hat, Rimouski, London, Moncton tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Sunday, Rimouski, London, I think. Let me find out for you. Memorial Cup schedule. CHL.ca, but I think that's the schedule here. The site is so helpful. Not. No offense, CHL.ca. So you got Medicine Hat, Rimouski, Moncton, London, Rimouski, London, Moncton, Medicine Hat, London, and then you got Moncton, Rimouski on Wednesday to close out the round robin. So fun stuff. I'm in. TSN every game. I'm invested. Looking forward to watching these teams battle it out. Now let's pivot to hockey, to tennis. Sunday morning, the second major of the tennis season kicks off at Roland Garros on the French clay. It's different. No more Rafael Nadal, which he was the king of clay, the most dominant player on any one surface in the history of tennis. But you got some fresh meat now. You're seeing up-and-comers. And who will break through? You got this major end of May, beginning of June. Then you have Wimbledon about a month later. Heading into this French Open, the hottest player on the men's side has been Carlos Alcaraz. And it hasn't been really close. He's won 2 of his last 3 tournaments, and he made it to the final in the other. He defeated Jannik Sinner on his home soil in Italy this past Sunday in straight sets. It was Jannik Sinner's first tournament since coming back from his PED suspension. And these two are the prohibitive favorites. You can get Carlos Alcaraz at plus 110 via FanDuel, Jannik Sinner plus 175 via FanDuel to win the entire. So it's those two and everybody else. Sinner hasn't won a major outside of a hardcourt yet. But he looked phenomenal on the clay last week. He's had a lot of rest, coming back healthy, juiced up, some might say. I don't think he should be playing at this point, but I'm not, the governing bodies. They're the 1 and 2 seeds, different sides of the draw, so they can only meet in the final. Alcaraz is so good on clay. The fact that he's already won one on grass, which is really the opposite of what he does well, is incredible for him. There's not a better tennis player to watch in the world currently than Carlos. You might not like his style. You might be too braggadocious, whatever it might be. He's the most entertaining, not close. But Sinner is just damn good. And Sinner is more meat and potatoes but he's hard to beat. He doesn't give you opportunities. You need to beat him. He won't beat himself more often than not. Third in line, you have Novak Djokovic, who's poor form. He's lost 4 of his last 5 matches, and he's playing this week, the week before the French, which he would rarely do. But he fired his coach, Andy Murray. He loves firing coaches, Novak Djokovic, because it can't be his fault, God forbid. He's currently playing in Geneva semifinal against Cameron Norrie. They're at a set apiece going into the third. If he wins, he'll play the big server Hubert Hurkacz in the final tomorrow. But Novak plus 1,500. It's a major, so I'm not betting on him to go out early. I don't think he'll lose in the first 3 rounds. But Novak's 38. Like, he's not a spring chicken anymore. There's a lot of good players on tour. I look at Sasha Zverev, who's yet to break through, but is right below him at plus 1,600. He's gotten deep at multiple French Opens. I take Zverev over Djokovic, definitely. Casper Ruud has won a tournament, made it to a final, another. He's made it to 2 French Open finals as well, so he has a lot of success. The clay is by far his best surface. I would take him over Djokovic. Lorenzo Musetti, an Italian, who had a real close match with Carlos Alcaraz last week, is up and coming, really good player. So the money tells you take Alcaraz or take Sinner. I agree with the books, because I do think one of those 2 men are going to win the French Open, because I just think they're too good. And then meeting in the final would not surprise me whatsoever. But to me, it's not about can Novak Djokovic win this major, because I don't think he can. I don't think he will. But it's how far does he go? How does he look throughout it? Because ultimately, he has a much better chance of winning at Wimbledon than he does on the clay. Simple as that. Could he go to Wimbledon in a month and win the major? Yeah, he can. He's done it multiple times. He's great on the grass court. He loves playing at Wimbledon. That's his better opportunity. How does he play here? That's the main thing. Just get some matches in. He's played 13 matches all year, and it's almost June. The women's draw, Aryna Sabalenka, who hasn't won the French, gotten deep before, hasn't won, is the favorite at plus 220. She was upset in Australia by Madison Keys. She was looking for her 3rd straight Australian Open title, but lost. She's played Madison Keys twice since, won both times. Both were on clay. Second is Iga Swiatek, who's won back-to-back French Opens, but is on poor form as of late. Lost 4 of her last 6 matches, dropping down in the rankings, and this is by far her best surface. Coco Gauff, plus 650, 3rd best odds. You have Mira Andreeva, plus 650 as well. She's a teenager, but she's a phenom. She won the Miami Open at 17 years old. The youngest woman to do that since Serena Williams. Ever hear her? Jasmine Paolini, the Italian, plus 1,200. She won the same tournament that Carlos did last weekend. You have Qinwen Zhang, who was in the final a couple years ago, and Alina Rybakina at plus 3,000. With clay, you never know. Tell you this, taking Sabalenka to make a semifinal at a major just that bet is easy money because she's done it at 7 straight majors. She's consistent in winning. She doesn't always win the whole thing, but she goes deep. She's always in the mix. Great power. The reason she loses is not really because her opponents are better than her more often than not. It's because she just loses her way. She starts hitting balls out of bounds. She loses her confidence. She can smash a couple rackets. Her frustration takes over, and before you know it, the match is over. It feels like Sabalenka didn't win in Australia. She always wins in Australia. She made it to the semifinal the last 2 French Opens. I hate betting favorites, but she would be my pick. Again, never winning on the clay yet. Getting close. Swiatek not playing her best. Paolini, good player, but Sabalenka is a better player than Paolini. Coco Gauff, more inconsistent than Sabalenka, but Coco Gauff, very good on the clay. So the French is probably my least favorite major, I got to say. But I'll watch, of course. It's entertainment, tennis. We'll see what happens. We'll recap it as the tournament goes on. So we got multiple games this weekend in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We're going to have news from Keith Pelly. We're going to have the Memorial Cup starting tonight, so we'll have 3 games to talk about come Monday. We'll have tennis starting at the French. NBA, Oklahoma City Thunder, 2-0 series lead on the Minnesota Timberwolves, winning both games at home in dominant fashion. Knicks Pacers, game 2 tonight at the Garden after a wild game 1 with the Pacers comeback. Tyrese Halliburton, clutch as it gets. The Blue Jays have won 3 in a row. They swept the Padres. Way to go, Jays Nation. So still lots happening. Golf tournament down in Texas that Scottie Scheffler's competing in a week after winning a major. Good on him. Got to love Scottie Scheffler. So on Monday, we will have lots to react to. Thanks for hanging out today. Hope you all have a great weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday. I'm your host, Noah Warren, and this is the Live and Learn podcast.